Rockaways Productions presents The Casey Waters Show, Episode 135, Swedenborg and Esoteric Islam by Henry Corbin. Hello, I'm your host, Casey Waters. Today, I will discuss Swedenborg and Esoteric Islam by Henry Corbin. This show will feature background footage of Mama Turkey and her baby turkeys who live in the woods surrounding the house. Also, this show will feature artwork by Judson Laird. Judson draws Sojouner Truth later on in this episode. Other background footage will be featured as well. So, off we go into Islam. I have never discussed Islam or on the Casey Waters Show, or if I have, it hasn't been very extensively. So I'm diving in to something new here for me. Thus, there is a good likelihood that I will mispronounce words and I may misinterpret concepts. I apologize in advance for these errors. Keep in mind, this is new to me. I'm diving into it, exploring it, to give a flavor of it to you, so you can discover for yourself if it's worthy of further exploration. I'm going into some interesting ideas of Islam here. Important ideas in Islam. Ideas that relate to the mundus imaginalis, the imaginary territories. Well, in this imaginary world of Islam, there are legends, which I will read a portion of later on. And if I don't cover it in this show, I will likely feature it in the next show. However, there is imaginary territories that I have created myself, which are different from the mundus imaginalis of Islam, though they do share many common features. One of the common features is the correspondences. This is greatly emphasized in Islam, that all of this world corresponds to a higher spiritual world, and that corresponds to a still higher celestial world. In my idea of the imaginary territories, well, there are correspondences too, but mainly in the sense of numbers, that is, having more people on your side and more people on your mission. And I guess that's where it begins for me. In my sense of the imaginary territories is this sense of being on a mission, usually accompanied by this sense of great joy at the prospect of accomplishing the mission and great joy to even be included on the mission. Of course, the mission is unknown to me, except that it has something to do with my morals and values, and it's a mission that is aligned with them, and hence is aligned with my imaginary territory, which is determined by my morals and values. So I'm aligned with my imaginary territory with its morals and values, which are my morals and values, on some sort of unknown mission related to them, which I am greatly privileged to be in. And that's like a typical story or a typical perspective of the imaginary territories in my sense. Typically, I will be removed from the rest of my imaginary territory. Well, in Islam, they see this sense of removal too as a sense of being exiled from the rest of the group, where I might see it more as being on a mission. Anyway, so with these concepts of Islam, there is a sense of losing oneself. This is one of the important concepts stressed in the book by Swedenborg. You lose yourself, you become nothing, but in its place, you are an instrument of God's perception, and God perceives through you, and you see what God sees, and you are aligned with God. And time and place doesn't exist anymore, for you are beyond that, and enclosing time and space. So, in normal human reality, we are separated from God. Instead of seeing oneself as being God's perception, we see ourselves as having our own perception that is removed and separated from God. And our own perception is in fact removed from everybody else. We are our own being, perceiving. Then we set up all these rules and investigations that conform to that idea. That is the primal fall of man, according to Swedenborg. However, we have to look at this a little bit further, this concept of losing oneself. Because the concept of losing oneself isn't just with Islam. Of course, it is with Christianity too, when you become born again in an evangelical sense, and you listen to Jesus and what God tells you. Also, this sense of losing oneself can also be interpreted or experienced rather as enlightenment in the Buddhist sense. And this concept of losing oneself is probably common to almost all religions, where one becomes in alignment with the higher authority, with the higher inspiration and insight and knowledge of God, whatever form God takes according to each religion. So this concept of losing oneself is pervasive across religions. However, one may become vulnerable in this state, and as one approaches this state, this gives me trepidation and fear of losing oneself. Well, I guess I feel I could become vulnerable to improper influences, and this is a common fear. And this can in fact occur, and one could be exploited. However, of course, there's no one left to exploit when you think about it, because yourself is gone, and yourself is nothingness, and you are just a slave. But of course, it's best to be a slave to an honorable cause, a true cause, the right religion. And I guess that's the rub. You have to make sure everything's right, from your teacher or your preacher or your lama, and through to the religion itself and all of what it entails. So, but when you lose oneself, as I said, you could be vulnerable to improper influence. However, there's things on your side to counteract that, and that is your own faith that you will have success in your endeavor. And what brings the faith and what causes faith, at least one of the causes, is knowing that God is on your side. So knowing that God is on your side, and God wants to work with you, and God wants you to succeed in your spiritual endeavor and find a truth, knowing that God is working with you, this gives you faith. And as I said, this faith and God being on your side allows for hope.